Welcome to this run through of SEO history. I'm Tim, Marketing Manager at Bozboz and in-house SEO Specialist at the agency. This is a basic presentation on the history of SEO, but it delves into the patterns we see in where SEO has come from and where it's going. So if you're an SEO novice or you're a specialist, there's going to be value in the information we're going to look at today. Firstly, a quick bit of background on Bozboz. We're a creative agency nestled in the heart of Brighton in the UK, just a short journey from London. We build amazing websites and market them for our clients. From design to build strategy and advertising, we cover it all. A lot of Bozboz's early success came from our understanding of SEO, but a lot has changed since when we were building Flash websites. So let's get started with the basics. So we all know what SEO is, despite this slide, and what a SERP is. But we wouldn't have these two entities without a lot of very smart people figuring out how to crawl and index the web. So essentially nowadays we kind of take this for granted, but back in 1993 we saw the first crawler, Jump Station, and it gathered content and indexed it, but it only crawled titles and headings. In 1994 we started to see crawlers that would actually crawl the content of pages too. Before this, in the early days of the internet, things just weren't crawled at all, and you would need the exact URL of the item you were trying to look at in order to access it. And back then it was largely just educational content. So the problem of how to crawl and index the web kind of quickly became endemic. The web was mainly used for these educational purposes, and as more and more content went online, it became necessary to solve that problem. So you can see from this early Lycos screenshot that 11.5 million URLs being indexed in 1995, and this SERP was less pretty and based purely on the closeness of the match to the search terms. There's a little score there you can see next to those blue hyperlinks, the top one being 1 and the bottom one being 0.9902. That's how close Lycos thought that article was to the search terms that had been entered by the user. This isn't something we kind of really would see Google do these days as much as we want them to. So the history of Google and search engines that competed for the position that Google now reigns from is critical to our understanding of the current SEO environment, to see why are Google the dominant players and just how far we've come since then. Many marketers who don't engage with SEO on a regular basis can hold on to outdated principles by purely looking at what has happened. But if you look at the patterns as things have progressed, you can kind of get a cloudy vision of what's up ahead of us too. We've got to remember that SEO is a modern phenomenon created by the internet, and nothing on the internet stays the same for too long. It's easy to see that when we look back like this. So what principles of the day were there in that era? Be crawlable, use simple common terms, the terms that your users are going to be looking for and using. Stuff your title with those terms and stuff your page with those terms. And that's how you would kind of guarantee rank 1 for different things. If you knew what people were looking for, if you had a crawlable page and use those terms they were using, then yeah, it would be relatively easy. It's just as close as you can come to getting that match. However, that's a problem for the search engines. If people can just match those terms as exactly as possible, then you start to have people fighting over that rank 1. So you need to come up with a better way of ranking them. Simple solution to that was PageRank. In 1998, Larry Page and Sergey Brin published a research project on a new kind of search engine. And this is essentially what Google would go on to be shortly after that research article. And it's an elegant solution. It's not complex, but it certainly required some brain power to devise. I mean, this is 5 years after the first search engines, after all. What this was doing was very simple. A site would rank higher than another if it had more links from other sites, and that those sites doing that linking also had a lot of links themselves. This meant that sites with lots of links didn't automatically rank well, but that sites with lots of links from other popular sites would rank well. It introduced the concepts of trust and authority. A link from another site was trust, a site with lots of links was authoritative. Google is still very proud of this concept. It's still a ranking factor. It's one among many, almost drowned out by others. That being said, the That being said, the icon for Google's voice assistant is a pictogram of the PageRank algorithm. The arrows show the relation between the blobs according to PageRank. You can see on the right of the slide here, that is the Google Voice Assistant logo, and I've added some arrows in there to kind of show that relationship. You can see there that blue wins because it has 3 links coming in, more than any other. But it's yellow versus red where you can see PageRank's true value. Both have 2 links coming in, but yellow has a link from blue, and blue is the most authoritative. So that brings a whole load more trust, and so yellow would outrank red, even though they have the same number of links. So now we have a system to rank with. Those other principles about ranking well, they still apply. But now you can get lots of links. You can get lots of links from high ranking sites. You can stuff your anchor text with those terms as well, because now it's the link itself that provides value. And you can stuff your site with internal links just to see how that authority and trust can flow around your website. But now we've got a new problem. How do you stop users from manipulating search? And it's a huge problem. This is not a presentation about Black Hat SEO. It's a hugely important chapter in the history of SEO, but it's a presentation on its own. The Wikipedia entry here on the slide, you can see just how many different ways of spam indexing there were for Black Hats. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. There are all sorts of other methods. There are also grey hat and white hat SEOs who did kind of a spectrum of more ethical Black Hat work, essentially, but really it was all trying to game Google and manipulate the search engine algorithms. And that isn't to say that Black Hats are purely to blame here. You could say that the simplicity of the algorithm at those stages is part of the equation, so Google does have to share a portion of the blame. We've got to remember that they're a private company. They got lucky with a clever algorithm at the right time. The simplicity of that algorithm was not prepared for the dot-com boom. Can Google be completely blamed? No, but with hindsight, maybe 2020, but foresight never is. But what's important is how Google reacted. They reacted with a panda. We're all the way in 2010 already, 12 years after Google launched. The web has essentially been a wild west up until now. That's a big part of the reason that the dot-com boom happened, because Google and other search engines let almost anything fly. With Panda, that was over. Panda was the beginning of a very modern approach to search engines and a lot of emerging tech even today. Machine learning took a set of measurable data points off human testers and turned that into an automated system of checking a website and appraising its value, keyword by keyword. Note that at this stage, we're very much talking about a limited technology. This isn't machine learning we kind of used to today. It was a handful of testers, a relatively small corpus of predetermined keywords, and a fraction of the pages on Google's index. But is that how Google would do things going forward? All that has happened between now and then can simply be seen as improvements on this process. Panda hit articles mainly, and then in 2012 we got Penguin, and whilst Panda had hit 11.8% of a fraction of the web, Penguin hit a further 2.3%, but it was a very important 2.3% in this case. Black Hat SEO says people who could catapult a client's website to position 1 in no time at all saw their work disintegrate before their eyes. The web changed overnight. To make an example, we have Interflora. This is an infamous example, really. They're a big business and they gained a lot from Black Hat SEO with dominant positions in a variety of flower-based terms. They were ruthless in their tactics. They sent out free products to bloggers and paid for articles on news websites. That might not sound too bad, but it was specifically to game the system and make sure they got the top ranks, and it was effective. Google knew they couldn't let this carry on. They wanted the best websites to rank, not the websites that could afford to pay off influence in local newspapers. This kind of would crush competition in a way. Interflora could maintain dominance if they were allowed to carry on doing this. Even with the market leader with all that cash to spare was the best result for the user, that wasn't the way algorithms should be figuring that out. Google didn't like that their system was so controlled by offline deals and money changing hands. At least money changing hands, not to them. So Google wasn't kind. Interflora's ranks evaporated. You can see on the graph here, just towards the middle, that big drop off, that was just after Valentine's Day in 2012. So Interflora had a big campaign around Valentine's Day. You can see they were reaching out to people. We had Twitter back then, so you see in bottom right, just after they got punished by Google and their ranks dropped off the face of the earth, You have people saying, oh, Interflora have asked me to remove the links that they paid for. So this shows that Google were on the offensive, and it actually took Interflora 18 months just about to recover. And you can see that again towards the end of the graph. So what we have to look at now is that Google wanted to improve on everything that they were doing. Ranking was no longer about what you can do to rank, but also about what not to do. So this was the principles here change rather suddenly at this point in the SEO history. Suddenly there's kind of 4 don'ts. Don't duplicate links, don't pay for links, don't spam low quality links, don't fake link networks. There are lots of others, but those are kind of the main ones that Panda and Penguin sought to punish. That machine learning, that small human test, that wasn't quite enough. At the end of the day, a punishing update wasn't great for everyone. Big businesses like Interflora were advertisers. Google couldn't wipe out their organic presence and expect that ad relationship to stay stable. Plus, there was backlash from the industry they created. SEOs were furious. So SEO as an industry changed around this time. Black Cats went underground and made change to ethical SEOs. They pivoted and offered their clients ways to recover from the punishments being dished out by Google. The new ethical SEOs were hunting down all the toxic links that the Black Cats had created and getting them removed. Every paid link had to be no-followed or removed. Every forum and comment deleted. Google even offered a tool to help tackle any manual actions that websites received through Google Search Console. This was the disavow tool. If you couldn't get a bad link removed yourself, you could just tell Google that you tried and that you wanted nothing to do with that link anymore. Google would then manually inspect your efforts, and if they approved, they'd remove any value you got from those remaining bad links and remove your manual action. Then you see your ranks improve again, hopefully. This was a really important time. The disavow tool was more than it seemed. We'll come back to it later. In the meantime, Google was getting smarter. This is what they wanted to do at this phase of their evolution. Hummingbird brought new features to SERPs. We got language options, local search, and deeper search. Google got a lot better at long-tail terms from Hummingbird and Pigeon. It understood pragmatics of questions a lot better. It also started crawling a lot deeper into sites. Limited crawl budgets, the need to make sure your site wasn't too big, began to drop away. If you had a popular site, you could trust that Google was going to crawl it all. You could even check in Google Search Console just to see how quickly Google's search engine was crawling through your page, well, through your website, and how many pages. And then you could kind of gauge how big your site could grow without being held back. Keeping up with the improvements, we got Knowledge Graph in 2013 and AnswerBox in 2015. This was a small revolution because sites have been fighting over rank 1. Suddenly, there was a rank 0 to fight for. You could have your guide, advice, step-by-step instructions appear on Google's domain with a link to your site below it. And that could even happen if you weren't rank 1 for the term 2. So we're back to being disempowered again. You can deal with your bad links, and there are new ways to appear in SERPs. So you disavow them, you use natural language, you get links to every page on your site, and you can even add how-tos to your content. This time, Google hadn't made any new problems for itself. It dealt with a bunch, and it could focus on just getting better. Queries were a hard problem they'd always had. Every search engine wanted to have better results by understanding how and why people search better. So in 2015, we got RankBrain. And really, Google gained a superpower with RankBrain. No longer were they relying on a huge corpus of keywords. They still had that corpus of keywords, of course, but this time they'd added a system that could process new words and combinations of words, checking existing data to make sure that to see how the new data was similar and produce results based on that similarity. Now, if a new word was coined by the internet or the business world, like a new meme or a new business becoming popular, then search results wouldn't be limited to matching that term exactly. Google could infer results if it thought they were relevant. This was a huge change. In a continuation of making search more adaptable, they announced Penguin 4.0 in 2016, and this would be the last announced Penguin update because Penguin itself was self-updating going forward. This meant real-time results. New sites, new terms, and new search behavior itself would cause rankings to change. Essentially, no SERP would remain the same day to day. And this is why we now have things like Mozcast and different forms of weather forecasting for the search engines to see if day-to-day the volatility is changing too much. And that meant that any new attempt to gain Google, in certain ways at least, would likely hit a wall quickly as Penguin adapted to not overly reward some new trend. And then we learn why all this was happening. How had Google been getting so good at recognizing bad SEO? The disavow tool had not been a gift to SEOs, it had been a research tool for Google. that machine learning they did with Panda, where they had human testers giving the appraisals of pages and fed them into a machine learning tool, they had just repeated that system with millions of websites by using their disavowal tool, focused on what was wrong with the web. John Mew was head of search at Google in 2018, and he's on record in tweets and webcasts, like the one you can see in the slide, stating that Google now knows a bad link when it sees it. The disavow tool can be accessed to this day, but really it's no longer needed. It served its purpose. So another huge change has happened. As SEOs, we can now focus a lot more on users, not search engines. We can use language we want to use, concise and more natural, and we don't need to worry about a bad link. So even feel free to use synonyms. If you put a synonym search in Google now, it'll come up and highlight all the synonyms that it thinks are matching that. So your top piece of content might not actually use the word you've used in your keyword search, but you'll still see in bold in the meta description in the SERP a word that Google thinks matches the one you searched for. You can be concise as well, because now Google doesn't need you to keyword stuff with every little variant of a word. Google understands brevity in this way. Fresh content can rank quickly, and Google is essentially ignoring toxic links. All is well, essentially, with the world of Google. This gives them a little breather to start focusing on broadening their reach. And the way they want to do that, as they enter their kind of more recent years, is by letting people with poorer internet connections access the internet more easily. The system of manually testing pages continues to this day. So now we're looking at a kind of a current guideline document. You can see there on the right. These are the general guidelines that Google passes out to its testers currently using the EAT model, which is authority and expertise being followed by trust. No, sorry, authority and trust being followed by expertise. So actually looking at trying to rank websites by how good they are in at the topics they're discussing. The Lighthouse tool has also come to Google Chrome, and anyone can test a page. The results detail easy fixes for performance, crawlability, usability, and accessibility. That means Google is handing everyone the power to freely appraise their sites for a wide range of ranking factors, and it gives them a checklist to score out to outscore and outrank their competition. The test can even be run under full settings for lower internet speeds, showing Google's intent to get high quality web experiences to more and more people. Google's radio silence on exactly how to rank, though. Lighthouse is a guide to technical fixes for problems that can hold back your site, but it's not a strategy to rank #1. We'll probably never hear that kind of advice from Google. Instead, Google is just carrying on with new updates and ideas. Voice search, AR for 3D results, similar research, and more. So it's up to the individual and the business to decide how to rank. We can infer a lot from the history of the search engine, though. So how do you rank in 2020? We know so much from Google and what's happened over the years. There are over 200 ranking factors according to Google now. Machines do most of the ranking, but humans set the standard and humans check the results. Ranks are different for every user, device, query, and region. Mobile is growing, as is voice search. But there's no idea as to how that mix is structured, nor when the importance of each aspect in that mix changes due to the constant updates Google now makes. So the guidelines that we live by: let users easily access your site, let users easily use your site, let users quickly use your site, and let bots easily crawl your site. Then following that up with creating high quality experiences that show off your expertise, and then researching to stay up to date, because this is always changing. That's a set of guidelines we use at Bozboz when performing our regular technical audits of client websites. Since we started using this updated set of rules in 2019, a few things have happened though. Google introduced 2 new meta tags, sponsored and UGC. These are types of nofollow tags that give Google a bit more information about the relationship a linked site has with the linking site. This is an important development because Google has warned that not using these tags could mean penalties. Penalties are a reminder of how things were in the early Penguin days, the heavy-handed Google of old. In fact, the threat of a link scheme action, a type of manual action, is so reminiscent that it begs the question, are Google just using us to gather info again? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Google wants to know more about paid links so they can get better at automatically identifying them. We've also seen the addition of BERT, which can be considered a new rank brain. BERT lets Google look at a search phrase in multiple ways. The transformer, part of bidirectional encoder representations from transformers that makes up the term BERT, means things like adjectives or adverbs as part of the keyword search, and they change how a search can be interpreted. So Google now looks at these words and analyzes them with the rest of the phrase taken into consideration in both directions from that transformer. Previously, Google only got the results for adults in the phrase maths practice books if it was preceded by adults. So if the phrase was adult maths practice books, now it can glean that meaning, gives a transformer trails the core phrase too. So maths practice books for adults now gives far more accurate results due to birds. Even more recently, Google has stepped up their mobile search game with potential badges of shame for slow sites. They've also announced that in September that all search will be mobile first. That means that a search on desktop will be ranked by how well that site performs on mobile instead of desktop. Your desktop performance will effectively be meaningless from September. Google has been making mobile search more and more important for a long time. A lot of websites now see the majority of their traffic from mobile devices too, so this makes sense. But the badges of shame, a loading screen for slow sites on Chrome with a warning that that page usually loads slow, is a clear punishment for not following Google's advice. And Google doesn't have anything to learn from forcing compliance this time. The badges are yet to roll out and they may never do so. This is a strong move from Google and public reception has been mixed. On the one hand, a user might like to know that it's their connection at fault or the site being prone to slow loads, but on the other, Google could see a revolt from sites who can't afford expensive dev work to make an AMP or PWA website. With that, we've reached the end of our presentation. If you want to check out the sources, you can find them in the PDF version of this presentation, linked in the description on YouTube and on the blog on the Bozboz website. We've got a number of these introductory presentations coming up on copywriting and social media. We'll also be carrying on with further presentations on SEO, diving deeper into the more detailed aspects of the discipline. To stay up to date with us, you can follow us on your preferred platform. We'll announce all new presentations when they come out. Thanks for listening.